Hey there, I have a special announcement. From May 22nd through May 28th, I'm rerunning my most popular episodes of your weekly dose of higher consciousness, all of which are what I call foundational basics. And I understand that we need to hear what I speak about more than a few times until it really starts to sink in. And be forewarned, these are from almost 5 years ago when I first began. So I may sound a bit different than I do now. I know I feel a lot different than I did back then. So I hope you enjoy these. And then next week, you're going to find out all about something new I'm cooking up here in Colorado, just outside of Aspen. How's that for a little name dropping? In the meantime, this is your last chance to enroll in Eckhart Tolle's all-new 4-month-long immersive program for his very popular online course, The Spiritual Guide to Conscious Manifestation, where you're going to discover your true creative powers and fulfill your highest purpose. It begins with a 4-day online retreat, May 30th through June 2nd, and you can still access his free mini video series or enroll in his program at the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/Eckhart Tolle, all one word, or click on the links below in the podcast. Now on for today's episode. Hey there. Welcome to part 2 of yesterday's episode where I'm discussing the power of sound healing. And today I wanted to share my own experience with sound healing therapies that I went through in the last 9 months. Super helpful. But before I get into that, my name is Liz Garcia. I'm your happy host here of your weekly dose of higher consciousness that you can find at highvibetriberadio.com on the podcast and highvibetribetv.com on our YouTube channel. I'm also founder and editor-in-chief of the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com. I'm on a mission to help you raise your level of consciousness on a wide variety of topics related to transforming or shifting yourself in the realms of mind, body, spirit, health, personal development, and spiritual growth. Today is no exception, so let's get started. So today I promised to share an experience I had with sound healing therapies. But before I do, let me lay a little groundwork for you as to how I came upon this practitioner that I did. About 3 years ago, I did an interview with Eileen McCusick, who is an award-winning author for the book called Tuning the Human Biofield. And that was published in 2014. So, Tuning the Human Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy. And I had the opportunity to interview her because she was putting on a free online event with the Shift Network, with whom I'm an affiliate partner. So I get all of their events and stuff. And a few years ago, I really wanted to interview all these people. And I don't do interviews anymore because it's a lot of time and effort to keep up with it. So I've kind of changed the format a little, which is not to say I won't go back to some interviewing. I'm going to have to kind of cherry pick when I do those. And one example is I really want to interview the woman who I had sound healing therapies with, because I find it super interesting what their experience is with this form of healing and what's going on while they're doing the practice. What are they feeling, seeing, intuiting? How are they guided? You know, many healer types are guided to where things need to be, attended to. So I had this interview with Eileen over 3 years ago, 2019. I looked at it. It was in 2019. And I have shared that interview with you guys a couple of times. Every time sound healing comes up or Eileen does another event, I like to reshare that interview so you can listen in and get, heads up on what kind of event she's coming to. But Eileen was a massage therapist for many years, which I found, and I've talked to other massage therapists that have really kind of profound relationships with the body. The body will start speaking to them and it depends on what type of sensitivities the massage therapist has. They could be just like a feeling, like an intuitive feeling is a sensitivity that they fine-tuned around the body. Some people can hear guidance. It's like as if the body is speaking to you, they can hear it. They can feel it or they can see it. They'll have a vision, and I have all of these abilities myself. They're called claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. Those are the key ones. And I have, my strongest ones are clairaudience, clairvoyance, and probably clairsentience. But I'm so used to it, I don't really pay attention to it. But when I hear something loudly or see something clearly, it's a different sense of what's going on. So I found that massage therapists kind of cultivate these skills and awaken these skills the more they do. They're doing massage therapy for decades. You can't help but start, who else are you going to talk to? The body's right there. The body knows you're listening, so it's, can speak up. And, people that want to help heal will kind of learn these, come into these gifts so that they can even do a better job. If they're heart-centered healers, really, this will probably come to them to make it easier. So I interviewed Eileen, who was a massage therapist, and she kind of intuitively had a feeling that she had to look into tuning forks as a healing therapy. So she started to practice with tuning forks in her massage therapy and really started to come into understanding as to what's going on in the energy field of the body. This kind of came to her while she's practicing with tuning forks and playing with them. So what was super interesting, she'd done a ton of research, and I'd recommend her book that will probably describe more for you what's going on. And if you're a holistic practitioner of any sort, this is a significant understanding and a significant tool to put in your healer's toolbox to understand, how to use sound healing techniques to kind of add on to whatever you're doing now. So what she noticed is that we all have this energy field around us, which is not really surprising. If you I like to use the analogy of Susie Sunshine and Debbie Downer. You may not be aware of it, but you kind of know the difference. You're not aware that you're reading their energy, but that's what you're doing when you recognize someone as Susie Sunshine and Debbie Downer. Very different energy fields. One is a powerful attractor field. The other one is a weak attractor field. Okay, so I'm gonna use some of this language I used yesterday, so you can get used to understanding attractor fields and energy fields. We're all an energy field, so you might as well just kind of come into this understanding now so that we can put things into context for yourself and for others. Like, really, let's all get our energy field shored up and put things into context. So she's noticing the energy field of the body, and what was first interesting is she said that the further the way away from the body that you are, and imagine Eileen holding a tuning fork, and as she's coming into closer to the body, the closer you are to the physical body, the closer you are to present day experiences. The further away you are from the body is your past. So you go right out to the edge, that's your day of birth, and then she's experiencing, stuff at different points in your life. Like she'll be holding the tuning fork out towards the birth, or same with the healer that I used. And as they come in with the tuning fork, they'll feel some type of disturbance or resistance. And Eileen called it like tangled light, as opposed to like something negatively oriented. You'd be like a dark cloud or, trauma or whatever. She doesn't call it that. She's recognizing it as tangled light. And it's a different kind of feeling when you accept that, universal light is ever present. So the truth of it, if you were to do a consciousness calibration, I can't say that this is true or not. This is just my feeling of it. But in truth, we may have had traumatic events, but they still hold the light of truth within them. And those events just kind of tangled up the energy of the light. So that's what Eileen called it. I found that really interesting to have a different perspective on energies and experiences of the past. They're not like poor me, victim me, stuff like that. It's not that victim energy. It's a coming across tangled light. So that's a great perspective to look at it. It's a much higher level perspective to accept that, because it's likely true at a very high level, okay? Which I basically know that the underlying energy of everything is love, which is a super high frequency in the 500s on the map of consciousness, just so you know. So essentially what's happening with the tuning fork is helping untangle the light so that the river of clarity and harmony can flow again. So it's untangling the light. So I wanted to experience it. So first of all, I recommend that interview with Eileen. She's very articulate, very knowledgeable on this front of, this topic of sound healing, and making it more acceptable as like kind of a scientific solution to problems and not some woo-woo thing. And she understands that a lot of people think it would be woo-woo, which I get it too, but I've been doing the Mind, Body, Spirit networks for so long. It's part of my mission is to untangle the woo-woo and let's get down to what's real and what's not real, what really has power, what doesn't. Because I used to dismiss some of this stuff as well. So I recommend that interview with Eileen, which I will share in the podcast notes below. There'll be a link right to that interview you can watch. So I wanted to experience what a tuning fork session would feel like, more so for trauma-related issues, because if you've listened to my other podcasts, I sometimes share that I had this quantum spiritual awakening, which I mean quantum, right? You know that you're not in Kansas anymore when you go through this type of thing that I went through, which I'm not going to get into that now, but I knew that it was jumping from one energy field to another like a giant swing, and it really was traumatizing on numerous events over 10 or 15 years of my life. It was not great. It was not the highest road I could have taken, but who knows? Maybe at a spirit level, it was what was needed to balance out my own energies at another level. So in any event, I knew that I needed some form of alternative healing, because a pill wasn't going to do it. Therapeutic talk could be helpful, but I didn't think it was necessarily going to make the impact I wanted it to, because I knew it was the subtler type of thing I was hoping to unravel without it being traumatic. So when I decided last year, I traveled cross country from Colorado to see my family again, because I had seen them the year before, and I love fall in New England. So I wanted to go spend time with my brother and see all my friends again, who I hadn't really seen in 20 years because I spent all my time in Colorado. So I had this opportunity with one of my friends to live. I have friends who have a second home on Cape Cod, and they're like, Liz, want you to stay in our house. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So Cape Cod in the winter is pretty quiet. I mean, not as quiet as it used to be, because since the whole COVID thing, people have moved there, and it was surprisingly quite a busy little place throughout the winter. And of course, I didn't leave till June. It started to get super busy. But I wanted to try something new. It was an opportunity to change the patterns of my life, change my thoughts, change my beliefs, and step into something new. And one thing I always kind of understood and knew is that taking care of yourself, there's preventative health care measures we can all take so that we don't end up in a hospital, we don't end up with cancers and debilitating disease and having to have surgery and heart attacks and blah, 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 and go broke from hospital bills. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get into that. I'm not going to be a part of that energy field, essentially. And this is not to be high and mighty or to judge others that don't take care of themselves. It's a higher level of consciousness and understanding to get, we got to take responsibility for our own bodies. We don't want to surrender it to, unless we have to. You just don't want to let go of your body. It's a valuable tool to get through life. And I, for one, have no interest in the mass consciousness on aging. So I've changed my mind about the aging process, which is a whole other topic. We're not going to go into that now, but I've changed my mind about everything once I understand the power in consciousness and the power of the mind to change whatever you want. Shift beliefs, let go of stuff, can move you into a really different energy field of health and well-being. So, in any event, sound healing has always appealed to me, and certainly what Eileen was doing did. So I'm like, I got to see what Eileen's up to, because she certifies people in her technique. So I'm like, oh, cool. And if you want to find someone near you, you can go to Eileen's website. It's called biofieldtuning.com. And you'll see a navigation button that says experience, and then find a practitioner, because she has certified practitioners all over the world. And there's some in Colorado, but most of them are 4 to 6 hours away from me. So I wanted to go, but I'm like, that's a hike to go see a sound healer, when ideally you want to be able to go. I would say I went once every 3 to 4 weeks while I was on Cape Cod. Super powerful and awesome thing to do, let me tell you. So, in any event, I wanted to find someone that was certified in what Eileen does. And I found probably 3 people that were relatively close to Cape Cod. The woman I ended up going to was in Providence, which was an hour and 15 minutes away. And I'll tell you, it was well worth the trip to go. There was a couple other people that were an hour away, but this woman I kind of felt drawn to because she's also a practitioner of shamanism, and she got certified and practiced with Dr. Alberto Violdo, who's pretty well known in the shaman world and in the mind, body, spirit realm. He's got a lot of books and he's pretty well known. So I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I like what her website says. She's kind of expressing her kind of philosophy on healing, things like that. So I'm like, all right, she's my gal. So I went there knowing that when you go into any type of healing, no matter what you do, it's a good idea to set intentions. And if you're a student of mine on my other podcast, which is at trumpetoftruthradio.com, I talk about the power of intention is huge. And on the map of consciousness, it's in the 300s. And I like to mention that, Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, wrote a book on intention. Huge seller. And Oprah Winfrey did a video on Super Soul Sunday all about her power of intention and using it. And she felt like setting intention for every episode of her Oprah show was like a foundational basics to her success. It was huge. And I understand the power and intention now that I know where it is on the map in the 300s. It's huge relative to the rest of the world, I'll tell you that. It's huge to be mindful and intentional about anything that you do. So I'm also aware of the presence of the power, the presence of the angelic realm on Earth. We have access to the angelic realm, for sure. And consciousness research has proven that the angelic realm exists, and many of us could poo-poo it because it's not in our awareness. And the level of the angelic realm is in the 500s on the map of consciousness, which is well beyond the reach of most of us. There's very few people that calibrate in the 500s on this planet. It's about 4% of the population, roughly, calibrates in the 500s. So it's a rare level of consciousness to be in the 500s and to even become into the subtle experience of the feeling of it is very different. I like to say you're not in Kansas anymore. When you leap, your level of consciousness or experience leaps into that attractor field of the 500s. It's huge. It's a huge difference from everyday living on this planet. I can assure you of that. So, when you go into any type of healing situation, whether it's massage therapy, sound healing, energy healing, surgery for sure, visiting a doctor, whatever it may be, I always set the intent that it's going to go well, and I call in the angelic realm to be present during, or higher consciousness. You could just say, I welcome higher consciousness into this healing space. I call it in. Why the heck not? They are ready and willing and able to be there for us when you call it in. And I just read this recently. I'm reading another book that I'm going to share, but the author, well, I'll tell you who it is. Anthony William is known as a medical medium, and he is highly connected to higher consciousness in the topic of healing. I'm going to share that book someday soon, and its calibration, because it's a powerful one and worth reading. But he talks about different types of angels. The different types of angels have different frequencies. They have different energy fields, attractive fields. Some are strong in wisdom, as an example. There's the angel of wisdom. There's the angel of faith. So these are different attractive fields, which I talk about in consciousness. They've all been calibrated. Faith has its own calibrated level of energy. It's in its own attractive field, as an example. But to call in higher consciousness into the room, you got to say it out loud. I do it in the car because I know and understand that whether I believe it fully or not, I understand that it exists, and they're ever present and ready and willing and able to come support us in our evolution of consciousness and our health, whatever it is we may be needing in this life. And Anthony Williams says the same thing, and he in fact says, don't think it. The angelic realm needs to hear it. They want to hear it out loud so it doesn't get muddled up in consciousness with thoughts that you're having, thoughts and beliefs and that. You're kind of more focused when you're saying something out loud. You're not muddling around other thoughts in your head while you're thinking about the angelic realm. It's more clear. And this is where free will comes in. Higher realms are not going to interfere unless, there's some type of spiritual understanding that they will if something goes awry. And I've had the experience of things going awry where I needed angelic help. Let me tell you, I didn't ask for it. They just showed up because I didn't necessarily consider it or even feel I was worthy of anyone's help at the time. That's a whole other story. But in any event, you just got to say it out loud. All right, this is what I want, especially if you're suffering from, crappy stuff. I need help here. God, angels, whatever, higher consciousness. I just go to higher consciousness because everything above me is above me. So, I'm willing to accept that I'm of whatever level I'm at, and anything above me can only be helpful. So set your intent for what you want from a healing session. And I did this with everyone that I went to, and sometimes I had specific topics. It's always helpful. I didn't really have too much physical pain, but I have some, we did address during those sessions. But mostly I wanted to address traumatic events. And I wanted her to check my energy field to see if she came across some like tangled light that she could recognize. And she also does this other type of, it's just called body biofield tuning, where she's tuning the chakra system, which is just like an overall, like an oil change, essentially. It's an energetic oil change to have done the tuning fork healing for the whole chakra system. So that was another service she offered. And during my time there, I'm like, let's just do the overall thing because I want to feel what it's like. So setting that intention before you go is huge and helpful. And it helps to guide the practitioner whether they're aware of it or not. To call in that higher consciousness and say, please help this practitioner serve the highest good for my well-being and, hers as well, to become a better practitioner. So setting those high intents is like a no-brainer, I'm telling you. Do it before you do any type of healing session. Massage, facials, go into the dentist. Call in higher consciousness to be present so that your highest good and the well-being of your body is served. So, when I came into the room the first time, first of all, I gotta tell you, when you get into this sound healing stuff, it's so friggin' yummy and phenomenal a feeling and experience. Like, I don't even care if anything's resolved because the experience in and of itself is enough. It's so friggin' yummy. So she has this beautifully appointed spa-like space filled with, I don't know how many tuning forks she has. But each tuning fork has a different attunement. So there's tuning forks for each of the chakras as an example. So the root chakra has a different frequency for healing than, say, the crown chakra as an example. I'm not totally sure about this. This is my guess, but I've met another tuning fork practitioner who had tuning forks just for each chakra. And the other guy it could actually read the chakra. So he's like brushed a tuning fork in front of my third chakra, which is the solar plexus. And he's like, whoa, you're running really strong here, which was great to know. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So there's different intentions you can have for each session. And what I found interesting is, like, she'd get to what Eileen called tangled light. And she's like, all right, what was going on with you in your 30s? She could feel the energy of something going awry. And she gave me a more precise date. She'd say, like, you were like 29 to 32, something like that. It was so fascinating. She's actually reading it. So I tell her, okay, this is probably what you're picking up on. So she's finding the situation or the tangled light, and then she's working her way through it with sound. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to break through that tangled light, seemingly. I'm just describing to you what I felt was going on. So she's got a ton of these tuning forks, probably 24 of them in the room. She also does crystal healing bowls, which is, oh my God, if you haven't been in the presence of crystal healing bowls, you got to check it out. And I've had the opportunity to be in yoga classes where they do live singing bowls at the same time. It's like, oh my God, don't stop. It's so beautiful to be live in the presence of singing bowls. And maybe you've experienced the end of a yoga class where you're doing shavasana, and then they ring those 3 bells. And I don't know about you, when I hear those 3 bells, I can feel it's a healing. It's so like wonderfully healing for me just to hear those 3 tings, ting, ting, ting. I'm in no rush to get up, let me tell you, when you're hearing that. So in addition to the crystal bowl, she has those brass bowls that they're pretty well known in the East, like I think the Hindus and like Nepali people would use these brass singing bowls that have a different sound and quality to them, but equally yummy and healing nonetheless. So she's got that, and then she's got these chimes that she uses that are tuned at different frequencies as well. So she'd be like, at some point in the session, she'd like grab these little chimes, really tinkly ones. They're small. They're just like a little small chime that she'd like wave over the top of my head as an example. So there's all these different tools that she incorporated into her practice because she's a practicing shaman as well. And I gotta say, she had this feather. Look, it was a giant feather. It must have been an eagle or a hawk or a condor. I don't know where the feather came from. But she used it on me, and the way there was a sound to it and a feeling to it. I'm like, oh my God. The next time I went back, I'm like, can you please use the feather on me? I mean, it was just awesome. Now, I understand, I pay attention to my energy field and how I feel. And after each one of those sessions, I was remarkably clear, feeling the energy of inner joy coming up, which is awesome. Inner joy is a high vibe frequency at 540 on the map of consciousness. It's huge to experience. This is beyond joy. This is inner joy, right? This is internal joy, not joy from some external stimuli. This is coming from within you. And I could feel this clarity and inner joy after a session. So you're going to feel something, and then this high that you're feeling will subside, likely, or not. I don't want to, I don't want to set any beliefs within you. Anything is possible. Everything is possible in this experience. Quantum healing is possible in this experience, especially if you're calling in the angelic realm to assist. But it's super subtle, but I knew that if I kept going, and I felt like, geez, I should just make this a monthly thing regardless, because I understand the catalyst for healing is providing to the cells. So it's super subtle energies that are being affected by it. And many of us may want like dramatic results when it may not, you don't necessarily want, I wouldn't necessarily ask for dramatic results. Ease and grace is probably a better intention. Take it from someone who's had dramatic results. I wasn't. Having quantum leaps in consciousness did not serve me in the end, let me tell you. Subtle, clear, steady growth, kind of like the tortoise and the hare. Just building the foundation for better health, starting at this sound level, is enough. And over the 6 or 7 times that I went there, I definitely started to feel it in the last 3 or 4 sessions. We're getting somewhere. Definitely felt improvement. Things have shifted out, and when things that have been bothering you for a while kind of get resolved in the energy field, you don't become aware of it anymore. You forgot, like, oh, where did that go? And it's kind of like that. You won't be aware of it because it's not in your energy field anymore. But then you'll have to go back and say, geez, I wasn't really paying attention, but this thing is gone now. Like, whoa, holy crow. So I can't promise that every certified tuning fork therapist that you could find on Eileen's at biofieldtuning.com will have the same level of expertise and healing capacity as the woman I went to. And I'll share a link to her if you live in the New England area, and to go to Providence would not be a big deal for you. I'll share her link in the Cliff Notes so that you can give her a test drive. Now, she has 60 and 90-minute sessions. I highly recommend the 90-minute one because 60 minutes, you're not going to want to leave. You're going to It's just getting good. Stick around for the 90 minutes. It was well worth the price of admission. And when you think about it, if I go to this, do the math, if you can prevent serious stuff coming to you in the long run by taking alternative, holistic, preventative measures like this particular therapy I would consider would be, let's say it cost me, $1,500 a year to go see someone like this once a month, maybe $2,000. It's way cheaper than an emergency room visit. Just one emergency room visit will knock that thing right out of the park. It'll be like, I don't think you can go to the emergency room for under $5,000 these days. Sorry to say, especially for something serious. Never mind having to have heart surgery or you deal with cancer. Like, why not prevent all of this stuff and nip it in the bud now? That's kind of my thinking as I just turned 60. So that's my experience of a sound healing session from someone who has a whole bank of tools in there. The singing bowls, the tuning forks, the attuned chimes, the shaman's feather, and those other brass bowls as well. Oh my God. So incredible. And when I got home to Colorado, I noticed my local yoga studio is doing monthly sound healings in a big room for like $40. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to that. Just so I can stay on top of my quantum healing intentions. So again, if you want to try to find a practitioner near you, you can go to Eileen McCusick's website. Eileen lives in Vermont, by the way, just so you know. And it was so funny. She grew up in a town near where my parents moved to in Connecticut. So that was kind of funny to make that connection in our interview. So anyway, her website is biofieldtuning.com. You're going to go to the tab that says Experience and then find a practitioner. And if you want to stay in the loop on all things sound healing and go on our email journey, we've got some great things that I share, including interviews with sound healers in that on that email journey. You can go to our website to sign up to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/soundsu. That's all one word, sound, with the initials SU, S for sign, U for up. You're also going to find if you're on a mobile phone, it'll be at the bottom of the mobile phone in the show notes. If you're on a desktop, you'll see in the sidebars different sound healing webinars you can take from renowned and celebrated faculty members over at the Shift Network. Again, if you like what we're doing here, please go to wherever you downloaded this podcast and give us a rating and review. It's helpful to know, we need some feedback here. I need some feedback for sure. And then next week, I'm going to introduce you to Eileen McCusick's free online event. And I have to say, this was in 2019 that she originally did this, but it's come around again and again. But I spoke to my contacts at the Shift Network, and at the time when they launched that first webinar with Eileen, it was the highest converting launch and course they'd ever done. And when you understand consciousness, there's something going on about what she's sharing. And in fact, I did get the calibration of her course is above 200, of course. But it becomes an attractor field for what people really need and want in their life. It's an answer to a prayer, which is just exaggerated when something like this is really a prayer, an answer to many people's prayers, when a course can have that huge of a response, which is surprising for like sound healing as an example. So just a little side note there. We'll be talking about that next week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you then. Hey there, Lovey Lou. If If you are new to your weekly dose of higher consciousness podcast or an avid listener, I have something just for you. I created a landing page with all of my playlists in one place. So for new listeners, I created a playlist called Foundational Basics. This is where you will want to begin to come up to speed on your understanding of the map of consciousness, a proven energy scale for realizing your ultimate potential by Dr. David R. Hawkins, and with where we are now. For avid listeners, I've created playlists for all of my popular topics like 1001 Ways to Be of Higher Consciousness, 1001 Ways to Let Go of. Those great higher consciousness quizzes that helps you test your intuition and develop discernment skills, tools for transformation, high vibe book recommendations, and my general main topics. You can find all of these playlists on the website at themindbodyspiritnetwork.com/podcast. Or you can find it in a link below in the show notes. Now back to today's episode.